the awkwardness of 2021 in so many spheres has created a brand new interest and opportunity in solidifying old and new relationships that would not have happened without 2021. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Beyond Labels podcast with yours truly, Joel Salatin, farmer, and Sina McCullough, PhD, researcher, and overall amazing lady. This is our first podcast of 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the new year. We've been through one, haven't we? And so Sina and I thought that it would be a great idea to start this one with 2021 in our rearview mirror now, and just look back and look at trends that have been positive, things that have come out of 2021 that are making us think differently, act differently, that are positive things coming into 2022. I hear a lot of despair out there, coming into this new year, and that's I think both Sina and I are kind of wired for optimism and encouragement and kind of get after it kind of spirit. And so we're going to devote a few minutes here to looking at some positive things that have happened and have set the stage, I think, for some real positive things coming into 2022. So, Sina, what leads your list?
Well, I'm very excited to announce that you and I have decided to host a second summit, and it's going to be at Polyface Farm on June 24th and 25th. At least that's our tentative date. So I want to let everybody know to save the date, because we're going to have something very special planned for everybody, and it's going to be filled with positivity, hope, and encouragement. So that leads the top of my list for what I'm looking forward to this year. How about you?
Yeah. So one of my, I have a list that's kind of broad cultural, and then also very personal for us here at the farm, and certainly for us here at the farm, the thing that has led the list for us was in 2021 we launched this kind of idea of having a farm as a gathering point for people who want to learn things, fellowship, get together, because what we saw was the basic, regular institutional gathering point, the Marriott, the Hilton, the Sheraton, the Conference Center, kind of fell into disrepute. Nobody wanted to go there. No one wanted to breathe the, air conditioning air or get met at the door by, mask police, things like that. And so we just felt like we just sensed that out there in the land there were groups, there were people who wanted to get together but didn't want to do it in the the typical fashion. And so last year, winter of 2019, 2020, 2021, last winter, a year ago, we kind of we cast our bread on the waters. We kind of let the word out there that, hey, if you have a group and you want to get together, we'll host you and do it at a farm. And boy, the response was just incredible. And so we did 6 last year, and including the first, I call it 2 days of truth, with you and me and a group of extremely well-spoken, well-researched people who were all expressing alternative ideas for maintaining physical, spiritual, and mental health. And so as a result of that, we here at the farm were able to build some amazing bridges and alliances, develop some new friendships. And so as we came into the fall this year, in 2021, we kind of, let the word out there again. And we've already got 6 books for this year, with a couple more maybe in the wings, looking at it. And probably what happened from it was that we had a lot of people here who came to the farm for the first time, and so there were a lot of linkages, not only personal, friendships developed, but with us, um, things that are now having continued repercussions, Tom Cowan, Dr. Tom Cowan, who came. He has a kind of an online, what would you say, a supplement, good food called Cowan's Garden, and he had never. I mean, we knew of each other. We had met, but we never met here, at the farm. And so by him coming here, we met. He saw the farm, got all excited, and has now just in the last 2 weeks launched our farm as the meat component of his Cowan's Garden, and it's going fantastic to his constituency. So a long answer to just say that I think that the whole the awkwardness of 2021 in so many spheres has created a brand new interest and opportunity in in solidifying old and new relationships that would not have happened without 2021. And so we're very excited about trying to create yet another enterprise here on a farm besides just cows and chickens and tomatoes and peppers. Another enterprise where if farms could actually be a nexus of fellowship, information, and in addition to physical food, that would be a great a great position for farmers that are ready to jump on this opportunity. It'd be a great position for farmers to be in. And so that's real good news. And like you say, in June, we'll be hosting this 2-day gathering here. We're calling them gatherings. We don't call them events. Event is like somebody else does everything and I go to this event. We want it to be a gathering where we want everyone who comes to feel ownership as a fellow stakeholder in this, in what's going on. And our farm is 8 hours drive from half of the U.S. population. So this might not be an option if you're in the middle of if you're out in Idaho or Montana or something like that. But for farms that are near near to population access, especially ground access, not flight access, I think that these are some pretty exciting developments. And if I may end the thing with this, what we did not have any idea about, the thing that was the biggest surprise to us was that many times when groups who care about food and truth want to get together in a conventional conference center, one of the biggest problems is the food. The chef at the Marriott, well, I don't know, I can't let raw milk come in here. I can't do this and that and the other. What's my insurance underwriter going to say when these tomatoes with dirt on them come into the dining service? And so those of you who are listening to this podcast, if you have ever organized an event at a conventional conference center and tried to do local authentic food, what a hassle that is to get that through the dining services, whatever bureaucracy. Here, everybody knows it's going to be the best food in the world. We source it right here locally. We produce a lot of it ourselves. And so we don't have any of that labyrinth to go through. And so organizations that were the hosts of these gatherings said, well, my goodness, I didn't have anything to do. We just had to put it out there and take tickets, because the food was taken care of and they could trust us to offer the best food in the world. That was something that we learned that was completely new and brand new to us. and something that obviously we're selling. As we offer this, we can sell this, to folks that want to get together.
Yeah, I love your vision of what you can create on the farm, beyond just here, come and purchase, these tangible goods. You're creating something that's not actually, for most of us, tangible. You're creating this place where tribes can get together and celebrate and feel welcomed and loved and accepted. It kind of reminds me of, back in the day when, like when I was growing up, we all watched Friends and Frasier, right? And you would get around the water cooler at school or, at work, and you would all bond over these TV shows, right? Everybody watched them, must watch TV. And so everyone had this commonality that they can bond over. And I find that we don't have that necessarily anymore. We have multiple channels to watch. We have Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these streamings, lots of options, which is not a bad thing. But what it's done in part is that we don't have all like this commonality that we all hang around the water cooler and chat about, like on Monday mornings, right? So what I love about your vision is it reminds me of that water cooler situation, instead of surrounding ourselves by the water cooler, we're surrounding ourselves by the farm, right? With great microbiomes and, this great energetic imprint on it. And it is a way to come together with something in common, right? It's going to help us find our tribal community, our other tribal members, and bond with them. So, and especially nowadays when so many of us aren't going back into the office, we're remote, or people are, kind of isolated again. Churches are starting to shut down where I'm at. So this gives us an avenue where we can still go in person and feel comfortable and supported and actually forge these new friendships. And I'll add that you mentioned Dr. Cowan. So that was obviously a new friendship that was forged through our last summit. And we're going to have him coming up on the show, as one of our guests, talking about a whole plethora of things. Including some things that I think might surprise people, like about Watson and Crick and how they never actually fully isolated DNA. And, this is one of these myths in science. And so we're going to be talking about things like that. Some really cool things to kind of stretch our mind and, maybe step out of the box a little bit more. So we have a lot of these cool things that are coming up, and a lot of them are stemming from all these connections that we made on the farm. Now I want to just add something really quickly because we haven't even really touched on our list, so of all these good things, and we're already, what are we, like 10 minutes in maybe? Right. So I just want to say this to all the listeners. So back in December, when I mentioned to Joel, I said, I think we need more positivity out there. There's so much negative news and just negative inputs. Let's start doing some shows on good news, right? So I challenge you to come up with something good. And do you remember your response, Joel?
No, I can't remember.
Joel's response was, well, that's going to be a short episode. Which I think is funny because we haven't even really touched our list yet. It's been like right. 10 minutes, but because it really is, it's one of those infectious things, right? You don't see the positive when you're inundated with all this negative. Once you start looking for it, right, it just reveals itself. So, okay. So do you want to do your next item on the list, or do you want me to throw something out there?
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead, Sina. Go ahead.
Okay. So one thing that I thought was really cool, because this is right in line with Joel, your and my philosophy of speaking with your dollars, is that organic food sales, according to some resources, the sale of organic foods were actually up in 2021, showing that consumers are actually moving the market. And I have this quote here from an executive at General Mills, and she says, it's amazing to me to see that 92% of households have natural and organic products in them. I mean, this is huge. They're saying, based on their data, that 92% of all households have some kind of natural or organic product in them. She says that, or the General Mills executive says that General Mills is seeing mass consumer uptake of its natural and organic portfolio. the sales for 2021 were projected to be up 6.6% to $271 billion. By 2023, they're expecting them to surpass $300 billion and to outpace the total food and beverage growth. So they're saying that the organic segment, the natural and organic segment, is growing faster than the total food and beverage growth at General Mills. They're attributing this to brands like Annie's, Cascadian Farms, Muir Glen, and they're saying that the sales of these natural and organic products are even more elevated when they look at the pre-pandemic levels. So indicating that during the pandemic, people have started to, shift their priorities, right? And I'm alluding to this, right? I'm implying this. They've started to shift their priorities and realizing that, health is very important. And they're starting to make these changes in the marketplace by speaking with their dollars. They said that to be specific, the total food and beverage increased 7.5% versus the natural and organic food, which has grown 9.3%. And a couple things I thought were pretty neat is that this is another example of how a company really does listen to consumers. When you speak with your dollars, they listen to you because it is about the bottom dollar, right, for these companies. So they said that this says, we hear from consumers that they want more products that deliver on sustainability. So this is a quote from the executive at General Mills. They want products that deliver on sustainability. So what they're starting to do is they're going to convert their micro cups from plastic to 100% recyclable paper. They said they've already begun rolling out the more sustainable packaging to some retailers. And then another example is the executive said, quote, there were a lot of consumers walking away from the granola and cereal categories because they didn't want to eat grains. So what they've done is they've launched a grain-free granola line in partnership with Costco called Autumn's Gold. So I'm not endorsing these products and I'm not endorsing, General Mills, of course, but what I am saying is that these are examples of how, number one, it really does work when you speak with your dollars, right? The companies really do listen and they shift the products accordingly. And number two, it appears as though people are shifting priorities and they're starting to buy more organic produce. They are speaking with their dollars. This is a positive thing that has come out of the pandemic. And like we said, like we just demonstrated in our book, we're hoping they don't stop there, right? We're hoping they go from conventional to organic and then to the farm. But this is a great first step. And I applaud people, the consumers, for prioritizing their health and for helping us move the market.
Yeah, that's great. See, and I to appreciate that kind of language coming out of General Mills. That's pretty neat, which is a segue exactly to one of the things on my list, which was a kind of epiphany for us when back a month or so ago, back in early December, we found out that sirloin steak at Costco was like $16 a pound, and here at Polyface, ours is only $9 a pound. And it got me to think, for the first time in history, here it looked like our food was actually cheaper priced than than a lot of the food out in the institution supermarket. And so that got me to thinking, well, what's going on here? Because you and I we're both hearing about supply chain issues, that sort of thing. And so meanwhile, I'm trying to get two books reprinted, Polyface Designs and Polyface Micro. They both came out in the last 2 years, and we need to reprint them. And the printing companies, it used to be that this was a 30-day process. Told me I need this title reprinted. Okay, we'll have it to you in 30 days. That was just standard thing, 30-day turnaround. Now it's out 6 months, and they tell me the reason is because there's no paper. The reason there's no paper is because all of the fiber in the country, the fiber production, the pulp the pulp fiber production in the country is being eaten up by cardboard for cardboard boxes for Amazon Prime, FedEx, UPS shipping, because the stuff that you and I used to pick off a grocery store shelf and put in a bag now has to go in a cardboard box to go to your front door. What I'm getting at in this whole thing is that these supply chain issues and the whole glitch of oh, somebody got COVID, so we have to shut down that part of the pulp mill or that part of the warehouse. What we're seeing is that the large companies are being inefficient because of these supply chains, COVID, all of these HR protocols, different things. It's slowing down everything. And so little businesses like ours in the food space, whether it's a CSA, a backyard garden, a roadside stand, anything that's relatively small is a speedboat compared to these big aircraft carriers. The aircraft carriers are being buffeted by all this HR litigation. I mean, they wake up every morning wonder, oh my, who's going to sue? Who's going to sue? I mean, these big CEOs, who's going to sue me for not having the right, mask policy? And they got COVID, and now they're going to sue me. Little businesses like ours, I don't wake up in the morning and wonder who on my team is going to sue me for not having a proper quarantine protocol in place. And so we're a little speedboat, and we can navigate these shoals and stuff that are these disruptions that are occurring in the system. We can navigate them much easier than these massive aircraft carriers. And it's quite amazing to me to think that this whole disruptive thing could actually create amazing, added up billions of dollars of market opportunity for those of us who have been accused of being, elitist and overpriced and and suddenly here we are, we're able to navigate this disruptive waters, if you will, more efficiently, cheaper, easier than the great big, we've always done it this way, and we, right? These big, massive aircraft carrier businesses, and so that's a very, very exciting development that we're actually seeing, within the marketplace. So that goes right along with yes, it's great to see General Mills moving, but don't forget about your neighborhood. Like we have a gal coming back to the farm that's sprouting grains. She's making flour from sprouted grains for all the people that are gluten intolerant, to go back to the historical ancestral thing. And so as the marketplace moves, we want our people in Beyond labels. Yes, congratulate General Mills, but let's go on beyond and find that local craft artisan who's even doing this stuff, artisanally and as craft in our area, and even get in your own kitchen and do it yourself. That sort of thing. So yeah, those are amazing trends that I don't think any of us saw coming just in the last 3 years. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I love that. Okay, so Joel, my husband has said for a long time that you and I are two peas in a pod, and I have to agree, because guess what? My next item on my happy list is conventional food prices rise faster than organic, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
We picked the same story. That's so amazing. Yeah. So, but this is what's really cool about our partnership, is that you picked the story based on what you're seeing at the farm, right? Because you're a food producer, and I picked the story based on what I'm seeing as a consumer. So this is great. This is the loop that we're talking about, the full loop. So let me piggyback on yours and share what I found about this that backs up your claim. So there's this article that came out, and it's basically a group that looked at data from the USDA. So the USDA tracks changes in food pricing, right? They look at snapshots of data at different time periods. And this group called Magnify Money, they analyze prices for organic and conventional meats, dairy items, fruits, and vegetables. They compared it from 2019 and 2021. And I will, of course, include the link in the show description. So if anyone wants to look at this in great detail. But in essence, they analyze prices for 29 cuts of chicken, dairy items, fruits and vegetables, 46 cuts of beef, 46 cuts of pork, 37 in total, different types of chicken cuts. So what they found was quite interesting. They found that the conventional food prices are rising at a much faster rate than the organic. And you and I did a podcast about this, about will small farms be able to save us from the food inflation, right? And so this is actually alluding to that. So they're saying that conventional prices on average have risen since 2019. They've risen 13.9%, which was 12 percentage points more than organic. The organic growth was only about 1.6%. Now, before we go into this any further, obviously every study has its limitations. It's whatever sample size, and they had to pick foods that the USDA compared the conventional versus the organic, right? So they're limited by that. But and then of course it depends on where you live. But the point is that these conventional food prices are rising faster than the organic prices. It's closing that price gap. And they go on to give some examples. They have this nice chart in here where they list it out. Interestingly, the fastest growing conventional price was broccoli. So broccoli, for instance, increased 141% in price versus organic broccoli only increased 24%. Milk also had a huge discrepancy between the increase in price between conventional and organic. Conventional milk on average rose almost 35%, where organic milk rose just under 8%. And in some categories, the organic price actually dropped. So for instance, on average, baby spinach that's organic dropped 27%, while the conventional increased almost 13%. Same thing for cream. Cream dropped about 15%. Conventional increased about 24%. Now, if you go price item by item, that's the point, is that not all of the prices are increasing, right? We're hearing a lot about food inflation, and it's getting harder, to keep our budgets. But if you're selective and you're tracking what happens, you can dampen that increase to a certain extent. So, but the good news is that gap is closing. And like I said, you can help your budget by paying attention to the prices and choosing different foods that haven't gone up as much, or like I just demonstrated, how some of these organic food prices have actually gone down. And in fact, they found that sweet onions, for sweet onions, the conventional price was actually higher than the organic price. It was higher by almost 10%. So another thing, like you just demonstrated, that your steak was actually less expensive than the steak at Costco, right? Even though yours is obviously much better quality. They're also supporting that claim that not every time that you buy something that's organic or organically grown that doesn't have a label, it's not always going to be more expensive than the conventional. And in fact, the conventional prices are catching up to the organic prices. So I thought that was pretty cool for all of us who want to choose organic, but it might not be in our budget. There are ways to navigate it and to pick the organic products that have not risen as much in price or that have gone down, like some I just demonstrated.
Yeah. So Sina, does the article give a like a bullet point reason why, or it just is analyzing the difference in price in prices?
So they're just analyzing the differences in prices. Right, so that's the bulk of this, is just the analysis. So to help you with your budget.
Yeah. So if we ask why is this happening? on a trend line, I think that what I suggested is definitely one thing, that just that the inefficiency of big, the inefficiency of that big has entered a place of inefficiency that it didn't have, a couple of years ago. That's one. The second thing is to realize that the conventional food is grown with chemical fertilizer. And if you're watching chemical fertilizer at all, because it's mainly petroleum based, it's ammonia for nitrogen. It's potassium, phosphorus. These are mined and take a lot of machinery to mine them. The point is that the difference between running your fertility program from in situ compost, for example, and in situ animals with tight carbon with tight carbon economy management in situ, that is now running circles in efficiency around the conventional, mining, whatever potash in Morocco and shipping it to Idaho to grow potatoes. That system is really breaking down with the price of energy, petroleum, and things like that. And so those of us who are on the biological food production spectrum, we are enjoying some really cool price savings that the conventional people can't, as all these chemicals continue to escalate, including the price of all those chemicals that the companies have to add on litigation. I mean, look at Bayer. They're still trying to settle the glyphosate court case. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. Well, ultimately, to protect themselves from this litigation, product liability underwriters are increasing their rates, their premiums for these big companies, as these kinds of court decisions create a climate of fear. A climate of fear within the corporate structure. Oh wow, we better as an insurance underwriter, we better protect ourselves from this nameless a chemical over here. And as the producer company, well, we'd better get a war chest ready, when somebody sues us for, creating, Parkinson's disease, we better have a war chest ready to fight. So, on many of these fronts, look, nature bats last. Nature's always batted last, and you don't cheat but so long until things start to come in. And so the happy news, the good news is that we're seeing numerous of these trend lines start to just point to the authenticity, the credibility, and the desirability of integrity food as opposed to fraudulent food.
I like that, fraudulent food. I've never heard that. I think you just coined a new phrase.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Great.
I love it. So what's next on your list?
Well, at the top of my list is the ongoing. I'm calling it urban flight or rural embracing, the homestead movement. I mean, in 2021, I think, or no, 2022, we saw 1 million new backyard flocks of chickens started in this country.
Wow.
if the average flock is, let's just say six chickens, that's 6 million chickens. 6 million chickens, and if they're averaging 50% production, that's 3 million eggs a day. Let's see, it's huge. Okay, it's massive, and so I'm just seeing a tsunami of homesteading, back to the land. Everyone that's in this space, as a book, as an instructor, as a podcast, they're all just off the charts, enjoying amazing interest as people are come to, well, how do you can green beans? How do you, how do you, whatever, install a wood stove? How do you put in a solarium, a hoop house? How do you have a raised bed garden? I mean, all of that stuff. And so that's on the top of my list. And that's a wonderful place to see the entire, to see a trend line in which this is now not considered just fringe, hippie, tree hugger. It's considered actually it's actually seen as a very considered, reasonable, and necessary response to jitters. When a culture gets jitters, people head for the hills, and that's what this is. Heading for the hills, heading for the homestead. That and so I think that's just a wonderful trend as people begin to embrace, their own do-it-yourself resilience, wherever they are or wherever they can get to.
I love that. And I think that it's beautiful what you're saying, because homesteaders and, and us who have wanted to go on the natural, kind of more the natural path, following more of what our ancient ancestors did and whatnot, be self-sufficient. We've kind of been looked at as almost conspiracy theorists. Why would you do that? Why would you want to sit out there on the fringe? Like, there's no need for that, given the industrial society that we live in. And I feel like now we have received a certain degree of validation, that they're saying, yes, now we understand. We may not all be over there yet and trying to create our own homestead, but at least people have a glimpse now of the practicality of it, of the real benefit of learning to rely on yourself, right? To be self-reliant, to have that freedom, because they had their freedom taken away, right? When the grocery store systems, for instance, failed us and there were food shortages. So people have now experienced it firsthand. And while you don't want people to go through anything, that involves like agony, desperation or want, you want people to be fed. But on the positive side, it has shown them just how fragile the system is, and perhaps has given people an opportunity to reevaluate where they put their trust and which freedoms they readily hand over. And so I think it's a great time to be introspective, to be reflective. And I also think it's wonderful to not only see people, creating their own gardens, like you said, raising their own chickens, starting to try out herbal remedies, for instance, like trying some more natural things. I think it's wonderful on a multitude of reasons. And one is, it really is starting to connect people with their food, and it's starting to connect people with their bodies, with nature. And as you well know, all of these types of connections are healing for the body, mind, and the spirit. And so what we have stumbled upon is these paths that are actually going to make us more resilient, right? Build that robust microbiome and build that resiliency within our bodies, our mind, and our spirits. And some of us maybe wouldn't have stumbled upon that path at all, or as early as we have, had we had not just experienced what we all went through.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. This kind of imposed, I call it an imposed comma, an imposed pause in life. Too often we just get caught up, right, in busyness. We get caught up in busyness.
We're on the treadmill.
Yeah, exactly, like a mouse on a treadmill. And when that happens, you don't have time to think. In my background, it's been interesting that in the Deep South, if you track the number of like workshops, seminars, things that I've done over my career, travels, if you will, I go north probably 5 times more than I go south. I was asking my mentor, Alan Nation, one time, why do you think that is? And without batting an eye, he was from Mississippi, he said, well, in the South, you never quit. I mean, you don't have snow. You don't have to come in, and so in the sustainable ag movement, the ecological ag movement, it is dominated by people in the north, not people in the south, because in the south you just keep planting. You just move from one thing to another. Whereas in the north, you have this self-imposed winter exile to have to come in, sit around the fire, and read and pause and think. And I think that COVID has literally given us a global push pause, if you will. And in that pause, people, guess what? They find out what their kids are being taught in school. And so you have this whole, school choice movement accelerated. They find out, the number one Googled thing in 2020, I think, was a sourdough bread starter. That was the number one Googled item in 2020, was how to do sourdough bread starter. That's a good thing, Sina, don't you think? That's a great thing that people were taking this pause button, and for the first time, they felt like they could slow down long enough to learn something new, to get connected a little more, either with their family, with their food, with their bodies, with whatever. And so I think that there's been a little bit of a shift in trust, to where people are now more willing to trust themselves and trust their own stuff than trust the expert. If there's a great, you and I are both we tend toward the libertarian spectrum, and I think that this general cultural mistrust now of expert, of the the bureaucracy, the expert, the orthodox narrative, is a good thing, because it has ramifications on on so many avenues of life. And so I'm glad to see people's trust shifting, and I'm excited when people trust you and I as mavericks. They trust our narrative, and are dubious about, for example, the Fauci narrative, and look at the ascendancy of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I mean that's like a breath of fresh air, to have a guy that's that unorthodox get as big a podium as he's been given now. And I pray that he can stay safe and stay strong. And so I think this whole kind of mistrust during this time of dubious narrative has been healthy, as you said, to break along these tribal lines. And is it divisive? Yeah, it's divisive, but it also, the divisiveness helps to clarify and put a precipitate in the bottom of the beaker, And I would like to think that you and I are a precipitate. We're a concentrate, okay? We're a concentrate in that beaker, all right? And that's that clarification is a good thing.
I love that. So I've never been called a concentrate in a beaker, but that's a new one. I'm taking that as a positive thing.
Yes.
Completely positive. So that'll be my new claim to fame, a concentrate. I'm gonna put that on my resume. I'm a concentrate in a beaker. But, yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, I definitely agree 100% with what you're saying. And yeah, it's interesting because I had this conversation with my husband the other day. I said, we're forming these tribes. Like, this is giving us an ability to find tribes, right? And it's like these beacons of light that have been sent out, and we're gravitating toward them and creating our own tribes. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. That's promoting divisiveness. Isn't divisiveness bad? So we had this conversation about it. And the bottom line is, we don't think it's always bad, to have these divisions. And for instance, like you said, we are now, instead of feeling alone and isolated and even, like an outcast, we're now finding each other. Like I said, it's like we have these beacons of light shining, and tribal members are coming together and find each other. And as we know, I mean, hands down, the vast majority of the scientific literature on health, longevity, and wellness indicate that one of the top predictors of those things, of health, longevity, and wellness, is community. It's connectiveness, right? You have to have that. Even Deepak talks about how community is on the same basic level of need as food and shelter, right? You need these things. Once you have all these things, that's when you can move out of fight or flight, right? But until you have those, you are in the state of fight or flight because it's like an essential nutrient, right? Community is like an essential nutrient. And it's easy when you're on the treadmill to kind of dismiss that, or to have what we call sunshine communities, like Sunshine Patriots. Donnie and I call them sunshine communities, right? They're not really your tribe. You're just hanging with them, right? You're in the same space with them. And so this has actually given us this fabulous opportunity to form these true tribes, to get real community, where you are having these individuals that come together. We can have different opinions, but we come together and we support each other no matter what. And so I think, and we're actually going to have somebody, I didn't tell you this yet, someone's going to come on the show at some point soon with us that it has started this up in New York, right? They decided they didn't want to leave. They have farms. And so they've actually created this community together, filling in the different needs of the community, so some are great in homeschooling, some are great in farming, produce, some farm herbs, some do yoga. Like they're all having this network together so that if and when the time comes, then they can all bond together and form this like neighborhood of individuals that help each other. And I just think that's just beautiful. And that would not have happened. I don't think that would have happened, certainly not this fast, had we not have just experienced, the last couple of years.
Yeah. So, we're about out of time. I'll just mention that my big writing project for this winter, right now I'm working on it. I'm partway through. I'm ghost writing a book for Ty Lopez, the millennial entrepreneurial guru, and he was also our very first apprentice. And I just did a chapter on him. He's done all these podcasts. 67 steps to health, wealth, happiness, and love. And so I just did this one. It was really, really interesting, and it talked about. Anthropologically and sociologically, we know that relationships don't become strong, friendships don't become stable and strong until they've been through adversity. And so what you're describing here is exactly that you don't build stable, sturdy relationships at the bar or at the the video arcade, right? At the hangout place. You build it by adversity, going through life together, dealing with issues, dealing with problems, solving problems together. That's why military people develop such strong bonds. That's why team players, that play sports and are on team and go through losses and whatever, aches and pains, develop such strong, because it's this adversity. And so it's this adversity that creates the depth and stability of community obviously being an outgrowth of relationships. It's relationships on steroids, right? Is community. And so what you've got here is, if I love this idea. I've never heard you say community is a nutrient, but that's exactly what our last speaker at our summit last year was talking about, wasn't it? If we want community that's deep enough to provide nutrient for us, we need adversity to create the depth and stability in the relationships to have that level of community. And so the adversity that we're going through is actually creating a platform for that level of relational community, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing coming into 2022. And we can take those new adversity derived relationships to a new level of, and be grateful and be appreciative of that adversity of 2021 and carry it into 2022 as a nutrient. That's pretty cool.
I love that. Yes. I think that's a shining light here, is that we are creating resilient, robust relationships. I think that's just beautiful. And before we sign off, how many more items are on your list? How many more did you have?
That pretty much got everything on my list.
Okay.
I mean, in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, I had several more on my list. So you know what I think? I think this is a sign that we should do more positive episodes, like just spreading the good cheer.
I think that's a good thing. I think we could definitely use more of that. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So that's a wrap for our first podcast. Happy New Year to everybody. We hope we projected out some positive, energetic imprints there amongst all the negativity. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.